Rock and roll may live forever, but we only retire once. Kevin Lamour of Our Financial Plans and Quadris Investment Services offers a large range of financial solutions from some of the biggest leaders in the investment and insurance landscape of Canada. See how a solid financial plan built with friendly and professional advice can help. Find out more at ourfinancialplans.ca or give them a call at 705-949-1316. And welcome to another episode of the Lonesome Cowboy Podcast. And today my special guest for this week is Glen from Crash World. How's it going, Glen?
Good, Brian. How are you?
Very fine, sir. So how's things out on the west coast of Canada?
Not too bad. It's been warm. It feels very June. Musically, it's not too bad of a time for us. We did a few gigs leading up to now. The last one was a few Fridays ago, May 30th, I think. We're trying to raise some funds to go in the studio. So my hope is that we can spend the summer in the studio. I think we've got enough kind of put aside to have a good crack at that. We have a good situation, but I really wanted to avoid, paying for a day or two here and then that kind of thing. I'd like to kind of, at least in my imagination, block book some time and go in day after day, and because I want these sessions to be. I talked to the producer, and I kind of want to sort of unleash his inner George Martin.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I really want to collaborate with him rather than going in a really workmanlike way. And here's the songs. Let's lay them down. I want to have a little more creativity. Or somebody said recently, I heard, I like this. Like writing songs is a talent, and recording them is a skill.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's that really, it just hit the bullseye with me. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'd like to go in and try to, experiment a little bit and have some happy accidents. Not that you don't do that anyway, but
sure.
I just want to lighten the load a little bit and see what happens, kind of thing. So
yeah. Have you guys been touring at all, Glenn? You and Graham for with the last album?
Mostly we just played in town.
Yeah.
It's, I was watching you with the previous guest actually, and you were talking about that. And yeah, touring's hard. It's hard. It's expensive. And,
yeah, I hear you.
The further out you get, the more challenging it gets financially, and, love to do it. Try to tap into the inner teenager in me and get in the van and go, but it's not that easy.
Not that easy at all, is it? Yeah,
no.
I hear you. Well, that's a cool part about the West Coast where you are in Vancouver, in that you have a large area to book somewhere to play. That's for
yeah.
you don't have to travel probably that far
No, that's true. That's
to fill
true.
your calendar.
Yeah,
That's
true.
the great part. Well, and touring is difficult because, like I said, I'm going out on tour October 1st for about 10 days, but I had to team up with another guy that's and we got a grant from
I saw that.
Yeah, from the Arts Council.
Good for you. That's grants are. You mentioned that he was a really good writer, so
yeah, exactly.
That's you can't discount that at all. Like our grant writing skill is, well, boy, it's like gold.
Yeah, my suggestion to musicians is to hire a theater person to do your grant.
Oh, wow.
Because that's Will, my tour partner on this, Will Gillespie. He's a theater guy, and I think he's done this before, so he knew what to say.
Yeah. Wow, that's good advice, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not bad. You and Graham are both full-time musicians, right, Glenn?
No, we have to chip away at day jobs as well.
Do you? Wow.
Yeah.
That's been there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you full-time musician now?
I like to pretend that I am, but I still run my business at the same time, which
Right. Yeah.
I don't have a 9 to 5 kind of job, but I do photography like I did for,
Yeah.
I had a commercial studio downtown in the city for from 93 to 98. 90, no. Um, well, yeah, from actually 93 to 98, and then 98 I moved to downtown, and that was till 2016. So there you go.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So now I still do some photography, some commercial work, and I do some design work and posters and stuff, and I keep them really inexpensive, to keep the so
Yeah.
other musicians can take advantage of it because I
Yeah.
know what it's like, eh?
Yeah. No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, so it's a common thing, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I
It's
kind of
it's
these interviews are kind of like a survey. What's this one doing? What's this person doing? What are they
yeah.
doing in that area of the country? And it's nuts. Um, so
Yeah. I mean, as far as gigging, I was going to mention that we've been playing a place in town here that kind of suits what we're doing. It's intimate, and that's kind of what the design, to a large degree, was the original idea of Crash World, going from
mhm.
bigger rock shows and lots of gear to the challenge of just an acoustic guitar and the two of us singing. So intimate was always good. And I've been going through this. I think Dan Mangan originally started something called Side Door. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've been on side door for a little bit.
Yeah,
My jury is still out.
yeah. Well, I would agree in a broad sense, but we've had good luck with this one venue,
Good.
and boy, it's really you really appreciate it when it's smooth sailing. You sell the tickets. The shows, we've been able to sell them out, and you get paid on time. The staff knows what they're getting into, so the staff is great. I haven't
Yeah.
left one of those gigs going, man, what am I doing? Like no, nothing, no problems. So it's pretty appealing to have that experience, because so much of the things we do in music are fraught with various levels of challenges. So
Yeah. Your website, I have never seen such an extensive website. When I finished reading, I knew everything I could about Crash World and Glenn and Graham that you could ever want to know. That's the most extensive website going. And the part that really got me was your journey that got you to where you are today with you two, and that involved with Graham having a car accident, I think, or an
yeah,
accident of some
yeah.
kind.
Originally, yeah, when I
Yeah,
for a far different time and project, uh, I was another guitar player and I were together, and we were kicking around ideas for singers. And I had played with him. He was a friend of a friend when I was in a punk band when I was like early days.
uh-huh.
And we played, I don't know, some backyard party or something, and decided to do a couple of covers. And the drummer, who was his friend, said, "Oh, I know a guy. He'd probably like to come up and do some of these." So, didn't really know him that well. But then years later, for that project, I was like, I wonder what that guy's doing. I think I know where he works. He was working as a bartender, so I kind of, yeah, I guess I didn't go in. I called them up, and they were really vague and weird about it, but they didn't say he wasn't working there. And I was like, what's going on? And then I had one of those, like, well, I left my number, I think, twice. And what's with this guy? Like, we
Yeah,
all do
right.
that. Eventually you go,
Yeah,
is it so hard to return a phone call?
yeah.
So eventually he did. And he'd recently been in this crazy car accident. And that really, changed his life for sure. Like
Yeah, no kidding.
it was major. So, but he was interested in the project, and we knew that we at least wanted to give it a go with him. So we were sort of in a that project was in a developmental stage anyway at that point. So we were happy to wait, and he was kind of hanging around and listening to the demos and that kind of thing. So
Sure.
yeah,
Awesome.
and then that project did last for quite a long time, and it was a big. It was called War Junk, and it
Yeah,
was
war
a
junk.
big. It was a big multimedia extravaganza before.
That sounds intriguing. I want to see
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Well, it was honestly, it was one of those things that when it worked, it was fantastic, and when it didn't, it was like it couldn't be any more disastrous. There was one, and people didn't always react to it well, because we'd move in. It was years ago, so instead of nice flat screens or whatever, we were moving in actually like 20 televisions, like the big tube guys, and
No kidding.
stacking them up. It was kind of like, it was a little bit like Pink Floyd meets Nine Inch Nails, so it had that kind of a vibe
No
going
kidding.
on. So
Wow.
anyway, it was a big big production, and a lot of back pain involved. So so maybe that's part of the reason why years later, when I kind of had we'd ended that project, and I just went away and just played guitar with no ties to a band, and it started to really appeal to me to do different styles of music and approach things in a new way. And if you were going to write something with a jazz kind of a bent, and you were thinking of recording it, you didn't have to go, yeah, well, I hope our drummer can do it. He's kind of okay at that. And then you end up sort of years later, you go, he really wasn't very good at that. And that could have been a lot better. So
Yeah,
just having the two of us and the challenge of just, performing, very polar opposite of what we'd done for a long time was
sure.
a huge challenge. And it really appealed to me as a guitar player. And I'm kind of, sometimes I look back and I go, man, that was quite a 180, because I had played lead guitar, electric lead guitar for my whole life. I've been, quite technical, and what that kind of side of things drew me. I was, influenced by the people that influenced all of us generally, but was really interested in,
Hmm.
in speed and gear and all of that kind of stuff. So to
Yeah,
just kind of turn it around and go, no, I'm going to play acoustic guitar, and I just don't care about that anymore. And the good part about it is when I go to the studio, all those chops are there. But the interesting thing about this project was, even when we recorded our album, the question was, should we just do it acoustically, like we perform live, or should we flesh these things out? And we decided to, because we weren't tied to any band, we could flesh it out. So that's what we did. We went all in and kind of indulged ourselves, and recorded the album that we probably always dreamed of recording. As far as, if there was a couple of jazzy tunes, I was able to, arguably hire the best guys in town. This guy Bill Runge, this jazz, he's a sax player, but he also does horn arrangements and string arrangements, and the guy's just like out of this world. So contacted him, and he did some string arrangements for us, and brought in a horn section, and then for the rhythm sections on those songs, I wanted a couple of jazz guys to do that as well, and had this guy Miles Fox Hill that played bass. And during the session, the engineer turns to me and says, I think, did this guy used to play with Van Morrison? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe. He's like, I think he did. He's like, I'm gonna look. He just hits the keyboard, and then he's like, yeah, check this out. He played with him for like 10 years or something.
no
So
kidding, eh?
and I kind of looked at the guy, and I was like, I'm kind of glad I didn't know that before he
Yeah,
walked in
really.
the room.
Yeah,
But we got quite friendly for a short while, and he had lots of stories about that. So
I bet.
it was, I mean, and as far as players, wow. I mean, so to
Mm.
see sort of a variety of players come through and play your music, you know, heading from creating an album, was really, really exciting, and
Yeah,
yeah, a
yeah.
special experience.
Well, that's funny you mentioned dropping names. There was a name dropped on your website, and a guy I saw in concert many moons ago, Brian Too Loud MacLeod.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, from Chilliwack and the Headpins. I saw him with the Headpins at the time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Ab Bryant was on bass, those two guys. And it was just
yeah,
wild. Yeah,
yeah,
Vancouver stuff. I know a lot of guys actually from the Vancouver area like that. Rocket Norton and
yeah,
um, Mick Dallavie,
yeah,
Mick's from Sault Ste. Marie, as a matter of
yeah,
fact, where
yeah,
I
that's
am.
right. Yeah,
And well, Jeff doesn't live in Vancouver anymore. Jeff Neal from Streetheart is in Winnipeg, and he's from the
yeah.
Sault. So yeah, there's Brian MacLeod. So tell me how you touched his world.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was, I guess, just sort of a few years after the punk stuff, and so we're still pretty young. And I was one of the guys I played with. Kind of had Honestly, I don't remember how he kind of got the contact, but he was pretty keen and managed to basically allow us to meet Brian. Always, and it was he was such a character, and this was sort of post Headpins,
Mm,
and he was kind of in a period where he was doing a lot of things. Like he would sort of start these sort of super groups around town and go and jam all the time with some of the great people that were playing at the clubs at the time. So, but I think he had a band briefly with the keyboard player from Loverboy, Doug Johnson, called I think they called it Dangerous. It was just, and it was
okay.
one of those kind of things that didn't really last long, maybe 6 months or a summer or whatever. But it gave them an excuse to pack the biggest places in town whenever they wanted to and play, and not just in Vancouver. I guess they went to Victoria and stuff too.
Sure.
But it was they had no material. It was just an instant sellout. They probably wrote a couple of songs, and then they would cover things like, I remember they covered Maybe I'm a Leo by Deep Purple and probably a few Headpin songs and that kind of thing. But
Nice.
anyway, we would go to his yacht. He lived on a yacht on Granville Island, and we would just go down there, and he had a studio. Like, I mean, it was small, like literally in a closet kind of thing. All the outboard gear would just run up straight up the sides of it. And I can't remember what he had, but it was, I mean, he could barely move in there, and you'd stand in the hallway and record your tracks. And I think if we were doing vocals, he'd set that up a little further, up on the in the galley or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was. I was funny. I was just I had not even thought about that stuff for years, but I was just telling a friend of mine. He was also said, tell me about that. So yeah, we would go down there. We'd have an appointment for 1 o'clock to come to the studio, and we'd always have to call him first. We'd call up, and he'd say, "Yeah, guys, let's make it 3." I was out kind of late last night, and
Yeah.
got some company here, so or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So
I
yeah,
love it.
he was a really really sweet guy. A really, I guess I would call him a very humble rock star, but
Yeah. Yeah.
was very talented, like in many many ways. I remember he had casually dropped that he had a writing deal with Sony in the States, and he had to submit like 10 demos a year, and brought him in like 120K a year or something like that.
Ah,
And we
nice.
were just like, oh wow, boy, that would be sweet. So anyway, yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
he was a great guy. It was a
That's good
shame,
stuff.
just very tragic what happened there.
True. And then
Yeah,
tragically, we lose Brian Wilson today, too, of
no
all
kidding.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
of
Sly
all
Stone,
things.
Sly
And
Stone
Sly
was it?
Stone. Oh, I wasn't
Yeah,
aware of that one.
yeah,
Wow.
that was 2 days ago, I think.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something.
I think they were
So,
both 82, actually.
yeah, really?
Yeah.
So, speaking of the old guys and stuff like that, you guys have been at it for a long time, and you got to experience the music business in, I'm going to guess, in a lot of its different iterations.
Yeah.
What do you miss most about some of those early things in the music business that was great or not so great that isn't here now or is here now?
It's funny. I was thinking about that a little bit today, and one thing with social, we all have to do social media, right? And all that.
Yes.
And um, when I found it was a big learning curve putting out our record, and, you know, learning all of that. We all have that stuff.
Yes.
When you have no material or you have one song, it's different than when you're putting out an album and you have to consider, how are you going to do this? Are
Yeah.
you going to put the whole thing out? Are you going to put out singles? What platforms do you want to be on? Which ones are worth being on? Why is this one so hard to get followers and this one's a lot easier? All that stuff. Um, and as much as I, seek balance, because I still have to write and record and rehearse, and primarily I don't really want to be, uh, you know, busying myself on social media. But I have honestly found it in the last year. I've found some things, even on Facebook of all places, and through a couple of other platforms, I've actually met some people and groups that are actually genuinely supportive and positive and helpful, and it's pretty cool that way. Because one thing I don't miss about back in the day, you were very much in your own bubble when you were in a band
Yeah,
back then.
right. Hmm.
You didn't really, you would meet other bands when you would gig, or maybe you knew a couple of other bands or whatever, but you were really isolated in your own, your own thinking and your own plans, and then everybody in the band had their own version of that too. And there's always that competition between the musicians, right? Which
Of course.
I really try to. I do see that can be avoided, at least in these times. And I know I certainly try to avoid it. If I'm going to listen to someone's music, I genuinely listen to it. If I'm going to comment on it, I will comment on it. I won't just say, "Cool, man, good song," and hit stop after 30 seconds or whatever. Right?
Sure.
I genuinely feel like, and I can't speak for other people, but I think it's important to do that and try to do away with some of that competition. I think, honestly, for any of us that succeeds is good for the rest of us. Uh, I
Yeah.
do believe that. Any story of, if you were to hit it tomorrow, that would be amazing. And all the contacts you made would, in theory, could benefit from that, because,
Yes. Yeah. Good point.
and,
Good point.
you're coming. And at this point, for many of us, we've done it long enough to, you know, be humble and put aside those thoughts of that were more self-absorbed thoughts, and really look around and
Yeah.
care. And actually, for me, I find uh, listening to what other indie artists do is great. I truly enjoy it. And it might sound strange, but I'm surprised to say that, because I was so, in the years where I was so wrapped up in writing my own music, which is a lot of work, we all know that,
Yeah.
and focusing on your own plans and career, for downtime, I would still listen to music that I might have listened to, or artists that I'd listened to, a lot of my life or whatever, right?
Nice.
I
Yeah.
might go away and say, okay, I need a break from this, and I'm going to listen to a bunch of Prince bootlegs or whatever for a week, and that's not really helping anybody except me. But if I'm learning and getting to know other indie artists all over the world, I think it's pretty cool and important. So
Sure. And again, venues, now that the pandemic is done and everything, we all thought it would come flying back, but yeah.
yeah,
Um, and the budgets seem to have disappeared. I noticed that I'm getting offered locally, at least locally, to play for wages that I played for in the 1990s.
yeah.
Um, Artists have had to come up with some alternative ways to get paid that work for both. What have you guys been finding it's like with that you've had to make your way through, and then and something that's helped?
Well, I think honestly, I've been leaning a little heavily on that side door and that one venue for gigs,
Well,
because
that's pretty
um,
good.
it's about it holds about oh, it's like I say, it's intimate. It holds about 30 people,
Oh,
but
cool.
we've been able to sell it out every time, and we set the price. So if we charge, like the last show, I don't know, $15 or whatever, but we end up leaving with no headaches. And it's nice to know you're going to play to a full house, even if it is not, it's not huge. And it helps to build your audience. And then you leave with $350 or close to $400 after a few tips and whatnot. That helps.
Yeah,
Because the blind, yeah, we're going to book a gig and go and play somewhere. And we did this one gig just after COVID,
sure.
and it was a venue I wanted to play for a long time. And I think it's not in the best part of town. And it was a Thursday night, and there was a traffic accident. I mean, everything conspired to make this gig a disaster. I was just like, this is, and literally we played for, a handful of people and the staff. And I was like, this is that I do not want to do. I just, I work very hard to avoid that. So I don't like to just the days of just relying on the venue or expecting walk up or even social media to fill the place, just sort of on a hope and a prayer. I just that's tough to get behind. So that's
Hmm.
another reason. I guess there's a few reasons I like the side door thing when it works. However, as you said, there's another side where I've contacted people, out of town, and yeah, and you may not even get a reply or whatever. So um, anyway,
Right.
uh, I'd like to. We forever wanted to cook up some T-shirts, but that's expensive, and you know, merch is well worth doing, but you still have to lay the cash out to initially. And when we're not flush enough to sort of balance out. I'd much rather go and record. I think having material recorded,
Yeah.
and that's my passion, right? I
Yeah.
really, um, I mean, that's the main. I love that. I love writing, like just the process of just me alone writing and coming up with something that feels great, right? Like I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah.
You,
Just hit a
it's just
chorus yesterday, as a matter of fact. I went, "Ooh, got it."
yeah, yeah,
Recorded that. I got to work on the rest of it now.
yeah. It's that feeling and that I just man, I love that when you
Good.
and then like just even so we narrowed down to go in with 6 songs, and I'm just going through the lyrics and I'm just tweaking the odd line and looking at the rest, and like just I love that fine tuning of it, and yet with miles to go because I haven't even hit the studio with it yet. But
Yeah, I
but
love
and
it.
then everything you hear in your head, that's so exciting. So
Yeah.
if I have to choose between that and coming up with a t-shirt design, I'm probably going to lean on the
Yeah, yeah. That's just like me. I was looking into t-shirts and I'm going, you only invest what, $300 to $600 in t-shirts? And it's like, yeah, right.
yeah,
At my age,
yeah,
my audience doesn't buy t-shirts, so I don't bother with it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I tried that and it just didn't work out. Speaking of venues, and you've had such a great relationship with one venue. How do you think that venues can improve their relationship with artists and make things a little smoother for everybody?
Well, I would, I mean, it's just sort of common sense things that I would have probably said, you know, all through this journey is, you know, have if you're. It always puzzled me that sometimes you'd be booked at a venue, you would go to a venue, and then you would, those arrivals where it's like, well, we're supposed to meet Joe here. Joe doesn't work here anymore. Well, what? Okay,
Yeah,
well,
there it is.
maybe it was John. No,
There
there's
it
no
is.
John. I don't know. Who are you guys? And what do it's all that kind of stuff. And like, you're the people booking the show, and where's I don't expect uh,
A
welcome
hero's
mat.
welcome. Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. You don't have to have a basket of fruit in the back room or anything, but I mean,
But
at least know what you're doing, and clue in your staff and welcome the artist and expect the best from the experience. And so often I found, jaded people in clubs, it's like they act like they expect the worst, and they're surprised when someone's good. Like that seems like a backward kind of a ratio, a way to sort of think. So I think people in these times talk about your mindset and positivity and all that, and I think it does go a long way for how you approach things. But yeah,
uh-huh.
so venues, if they're going to do it, they need to clue in the staff. They need to, I think, pay a reasonable amount. Like have, yeah, we're not going to get rich doing it, but they shouldn't.
You mean
They
not $100 for two
yeah,
hours?
not $100 for 2 hours or 4 sets for $200. Like that kind of like that's just not going to happen. So and
That's
and
that's what
and
I
when you
deal with
say
around here.
yeah,
150 for 3 hours.
and when you say that's not going to work, they
Yeah.
say okay, well I'll get back to you, and they don't, and they've just found someone else that'll. So
That's
are you looking for, you were interested in having the conversation with yourself or me, but in the end, if you can't it's all about the $100, and if not, you'll get somebody else. So you know, obviously you're not really invested in what we're doing. And you long for those stories of a Bill
Well
Graham or
said.
something in your
Yeah,
life
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
they're like so passionate about the artist because I love what Brian Tremblay does. I want that guy, okay, he's not going to do it for 100. Okay, I'll give you $200 for a set. Like, let's get you in here. That's what's important to me. You know, uh, times are tough, I know, but there is somebody out there that has money, and I'm not gonna, and it's probably not the musicians. So somebody that's running a bar has got to have enough budget to actually, do this. Why not try it where you pay good people that you like, if you're passionate about having people in, pay them a decent amount. Try that for 6 months. See how that feels. Instead of paying little as possible to people you don't know, and you're bringing them in just on a basis that they'll do it, and then you find I don't really like this. Isn't really working out. These bands are. I'm not really enjoying the entertainment. They're not very good, and I think we're going to move on and get a DJ. Let's go back to DJs. So it's they always act like it's on the artist, but it's
Yeah,
it's it's not. It's on them. And where
that's
are those champions of music? It's because they love it, right?
I remember the first thing again, the bar has no idea who you are and isn't caring to learn about who you are, and the
Yeah,
only words out of their mouth are, "Is do you have a following?"
yeah,
My answer is, "Do you have a clientele?"
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, Glenn, unfortunately, I pay for the cheap version of which is free for Zoom. So I got one question. I hope you can get that in for me.
Okay.
And because I wanted to ask about you, because my wife always said, hey, if you want to ruin music and ruin the fun of music, learn theory. And you went back to school and learned jazz theory, right?
Well, I did and I didn't. I did it on my own. I did it.
Oh,
I
really?
did it. I did it myself.
So you
It's
went to
like
the woodshed and did it.
yeah, yes, exactly.
Oh, that's even
So
tougher.
it is, and that's how I learned guitar basically in the first place.
Really, eh?
So yeah. My son, on the other hand, has been to music college and did the jazz program. So we
Yeah.
often debate on you know schooled versus unschooled. I mean, I definitely know enough. I know more than I used to, and I understand as much as I need to, I guess you'd say.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I always was sort of influenced by the idea that doing it yourself would bring out something profound. So whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But I did enjoy those years of going back and actually dedicating myself to learning something new. So
That takes a lot, man. That takes a real lot.
yeah.
And I got room for one more because of your wonderfully great answer.
Okay.
Your shows, I noticed the two of you on stage. Are most of your shows like that, Glenn, or do you and Grayman pull in a band every once in a while to fill it up?
Originally we were dedicated to just the two of us, and that was the challenge. And our idea was simply we'll we'll pick, we'll choose, and we'll write, hopefully, great material. And if we do it well, people will like it. So we don't have to, we don't have to play any CCR. We're not going to play any Eagles or, no offense, but you know what I mean. We're not just going to play covers. We're going to play. We're going to go deep. So it was almost into eras. So we would go back to like the 20s and the 30s and learn some like Robert Johnson and Blind Blake and stuff like
Nice.
that. And then Graham was always up for a challenge, and he never balks at singing like Billie Holiday and that kind of thing. So it really pushed us to do different things. So our show is it's definitely a pretty even balance of our own material and cover tunes. And I mean, it's definitely not a bunch of songs that people know, and we've been proven right because people do come out and really appreciate the show. And also, I should add that I do a lot of spoken introductions and which people really
Important
respond.
stuff. Important
Yeah,
stuff. Yes, I do
well,
the
yeah,
same.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to say to a buddy of mine before this project, he'd say, "How do you know that? Who produced that album from 1967? Why would you know that?" And yeah, and I know the photographer that did the album art too. And I'd say, "Yeah, man, I'm a wealth of useless information."
Yeah.
So years later, doing this project, I'm like, "No, not so much. It's all that information is, as you say, is very valuable, right?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
that's very cool. All right, Glen MacLeod and Graham MacDonald, who is not here with us today, but part of the Crash World. Tell the folks, Glenn, where they can find out more about Crash World and the socials and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you can find us. Everything is Crash World Band. YouTube. We have some nice videos. A few produced nice video productions, and then
Yes,
lots of lyric videos that aren't too
yes.
shabby too. Um, and then Facebook, of course, Instagram, um, and our website, our extensive website.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Uh,
website. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
Man.
I'm actually hoping to add some more current pictures. We just did that show of some where we did some Bowie material and
Nice.
had a photographer come out and he he did some nice things. So we'll
Good
see.
stuff.
But yeah, all the usual
Excellent.
places and just Crash World Band is where
Right
you'll
on.
find us.
Excellent. All right, Glenn MacLeod, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Brian. My pleasure. I really was looking forward to this. I'm glad we were able
Yep.
to get it
We
together here.
time zones be damned, we made it.
Yeah.
I'll catch you on the other side, Glenn.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.